Okay, my sleepy samurais. Let's put on some chapstick before we get into this Shaun the sheep. Tales from the mossy bottom farm. Flock to the seaside. This is normally my nighttime lip balm. Okay. We made it to chapter 3. I do like to bleat beside the seaside. Shaun emerged from the other side of the hedge to find Bitzer standing in a meadow on tiptoe, shading his eyes, panting eagerly. In the distance, the sea glittered, and in the middle of the meadow, a young couple sat frozen with shock beside a picnic blanket. Bitzer wolfed at Shaun. Which way? Shaun dropped all 4 hooves and trotted toward the young couple. As he had suspected, the blanket was covered in hoof prints, as well as the trampled remains of a picnic. The young woman was still staring wide-eyed across the field. Her fingers were raised halfway to her mouth, as if she had just been about to take a bite of something. Delicious cake, perhaps? That had been snatched away just before it reached her mouth. Shaun nodded to himself. Shirley had definitely been there. A few yards away was a swinging gate, and on the other side of the gate was a path that led down toward the seaside town and the beach beyond. Shaun bleated over his shoulder to Bitzer. They went this way. Then there's Little Mouse. Bitzer marched across the meadow, striding over the picnic blanket between the surprised couple. Shaun followed, stopping only long enough to help himself to a cheese, lettuce, and coleslaw sandwich from their picnic basket. He caught up with Bitzer and at an old wooden signpost. That read Pidlington-on-Sea. Shaun checked a bush nearby. Sure enough, a few wisps of white wool were caught in its thorns. The flock had headed straight toward the town. Dragging Bitzer by the elbow, he set off at a fast trot down the footpath. A few minutes later, Shaun shook a fist at a passing cow and wiped cow pie from his hoof. Bitzer pointed out a rickety gate that had been flattened. Another sure sign that Shirley had come this way. They scrambled over the broken wood and skidded to a halt at the top of a hill. Bitzer made a noise that sounded like a eek. Shaun nodded in agreement, his heart sinking. This thing on my nose. I can see it while I'm reading. Below them was a bustling town. A crowded pier stretched out into the sea. There were a fair and a circus, fishing nets and beach shops, and stalls selling hot dogs, rock candy, and fish and chips. Finding a handful of sheep here would be like trying to find, Shaun thought about it. Well, it'd be like trying to find an actual chocolate raisin in Nuts' bag of chocolate raisins. Bitzer gave a low growl. Come on. Time was ticking on, and they had to try, or the farmer would be laughed out of the farm show. With a gulp, Shaun trotted down the hill. A few minutes later, the two peered out of a back alley onto Pidlington-on-Sea's main street. There was no sign of the flock among the crowds, but a brightly colored ice cream truck caught Shaun's eye. Whistling quietly, he began edging away from Bitzer toward it. A woof brought him to a stop. Bitzer gave him a stern look. There was no time for ice cream. Shaun edged back to Bitzer's side, trying to look innocent. Bitzer rubbed his chin and stared into the crowd. Where should they start looking? Where would the sheep head first? Each sheep would want to do something different. Bitzer could just... If Bitzer could just figure out what it was, he'd know where to look. Bitzer squeezed his eyes shut, thinking hard. He'd start with Shirley. What would Shirley most likely do? Perhaps she'd enjoy a game of beach volleyball, or a brisk swim. Bitzer shook his head. No, that wasn't it. What did Shirley love doing? Shaun tugged at his arm. Bitzer flapped a paw at him. He was busy. Did Shirley love hang gliding? No. Scuba diving? No. Shaun tugged again. Bitzer's eyes snapped open. Annoyed, he woofed at Shaun. If he wasn't allowed to think, they would never find... Bleeding, Shaun pointed. At the end of the busy street was a low wall that separated the pavement from the beach. Just visible over the top was a fluffy white fleece. One of the flock was sunbathing on the other side of that wall. Bitzer sighed with relief. Thinking was really difficult. And patted Shaun on the back. Good work. All they had to do now was make sure that the sheep didn't get away. Shaun bleated he needed a disguise. He didn't want any humans trying to take him back to the field before he had rounded up the flock. Moments later, Shaun and Bitzer strolled from the alley. Shaun was wearing a "Kiss Me Quick" hat Bitzer found in a trash can and a pair of neon sunglasses someone had dropped. They made their way toward the wall. The fleece on the other side hadn't moved. Bitzer gave Shaun a questioning look. Ready? Uh-oh. Shaun nodded. Bitzer motioned 3, 2, 1. Together they leapt over the wall. Spread eagle to grab the sheep. Shaun landed with an oof, holding tight to the thick fleece. He frowned. The wool felt odd. It was softer and fluffier than normal. Perhaps, he thought, this sheep had been using the berry styles as soft and bouncy. It doesn't look like it. If so, it was very good, and it smelled amazing. He'd have to remember to give it a try. Bitzer landed next to him in the fleece. He groaned at Shaun, one sheep down. Soon they would be on their way back to the... A scream split the air. Shaun and Bitzer clung on tightly as the sheep started running in circles on the sand, still squealing loudly. A man wearing some trunks leapt to his feet. Oi, warfar flippin' heck. Warha. I don't know. I'll just go with what I said. He snarled. Shaun and Bitzer leaned over the side of the fleece and looked down. A screaming woman with white curls blinked up at them. They hadn't captured a stray member of the flock. They had captured an old lady's fluffy white hairdo. They jumped off and grinned apologetically, backing away from the old lady and her husband. Uh-oh. They're having a bit of a kerfuffle, trying to find new sheep. Grr, goop, some black, whoops, splat, stumble, scream, trip, squish. Grr, nudge, nudge. They think they found another sheep. Shaun nudged, and Bitzer pointed back over the wall. A white fleece bobbed past. It had to be one of the flock this time. Together they turned tail and leapt back over the wall. Shaun gave Bitzer a satisfied smirk as he landed. This time they had definitely caught... Eek! Flying sheep! Mum! With a gulp, Shaun landed. He had caught a small boy's cotton candy. We'll read chapter 4 too. Chapter 4. Find the flock. Bleating a summery tune to herself, Timmy's mum strolled along the beach with the sun warming her curlers. She paused to wave at Timmy, who sat happily on his surfboard as it skimmed down a massive wave. A second later, disaster struck. The board flipped into the air, sending Timmy high into the sky. Oh no, not Timmy. Timmy's mum sighed with relief and strolled on. Timmy was safe with his twins. It was a lovely day for a walk on the beach. And what was this? A woman was snoring in a deck chair. She had a dandelion puff of pink hair and the most amazing green sunglasses Timmy's mom had ever seen. They were shaped like wings and dotted with jewels. They were beautiful. Timmy's mom held her breath. The woman was sleeping. Surely she wouldn't notice if someone borrowed them for just a little while. At the sound of a low bleat, the woman with pink hair jolted awake. A sheep wearing curlers and very familiar sunglasses stared back at her. The sheep grinned. Looks like Timmy's having fun with the twins. The woman opened her mouth to scream, but then changed her mind and chuckled to herself. What a strange dream, she thought. A sheep couldn't afford sunglasses like that. And anyway, they would look ridiculous with curlers. A second later, the woman started snoring again. Timmy's mom strolled on, enjoying the admiring look she received from her new sunglasses. Out at sea, Timmy was standing on the twins' shoulders as they zigzagged across the waves on their water skis. When their speedboat curved in toward the beach, they let go of the tow line, shooting over the water and coming to a gentle stop on the sand. Timmy squeaked, jumping up and down. Again, again. Meanwhile, in the middle of town, Bitzer and Shaun wandered past a street musician singing and a musician, but no sheep. Bitzer glanced up at the town hall clock. His tail drooped. The sheepdog trial would start in less than an hour. They had searched the shops, stopping so that Shaun could send a postcard to the pigs back at Mossy Bottom Farm, the games arcade, pausing so that Shaun could play the Evil Dogs 3 video game, in the fair, waiting so Shaun could ride the terrifying discombobulator of death. But they hadn't found a single sheep. On top of everything else, fish and chips and wisps of cotton candy were stuck to his coat. Bitzer groaned. Maybe Top Dog was right. Maybe he was a useless sheepdog. Picking cotton candy from his fleece, Shaun nibbled it thoughtfully and nudged Bitzer. He pointed toward a line of bored-looking donkeys, then clip-clopped his hooves together. He shaded his eyes and peered around. If they were riding a donkey, they could get around the town more quickly and see over the heads of the crowd. Bitzer nodded eagerly. What a brilliant idea. But he whiffed in disappointment a second later when he noticed a sign. A ride cost $5. Where would he and Shaun find the money? Shaun snickered and held up a hoof. Bitzer could leave this to him. The street performers had given him an idea. Shaun launched into a dance, hoofs tip-tapping on the pavement. Ooh, said a voice in the crowd. A woman had stopped to stare. Shaun tap-danced over to her, twirled her around, and dipped her back. He's got some smooth moves for a sheep. After planting a sloppy kiss on her cheek, she danced away. Bitzer held out his woolly hat. With a chuckle, the woman fished around in her purse and then dropped a coin in. By now, a crowd was forming. Puffing and panting, Shaun danced harder. Hooves clattering over the pavement before dropping to one knee with his arms spread. Now that was entertainment. The audience broke into applause, yelling for more. Buzzard's hat jingled as it filled with coins. Shaun grinned. He bowed and tapped a hoof, ready for another number. Then he bleated and protested as Bitzer yanked him away. After pouring a heap of loose change into the surprised donkey owner's hands, Bitzer pointed to the biggest donkey. She was wearing a bridle that said Sweet Gertrude. Gertrude. Shaun blinked nervously. Sweet Gertrude didn't look very sweet at all. In fact, she was glaring at them with a nasty gleam in her eye. Shaun gulped and looked around. Maybe adorable Mavis would be a better choice. Bitzer shook his head. Sweet Gertrude looked like she was built for speed. He jumped into the saddle and pulled Shaun up behind him. Then Bitzer dug his heels into her flanks with a loud woof. Go, fly like the wind, Sweet Gertrude. Sweet Gertrude gave her riders a chilly stare and set off toward the beach at a very slow walk. Shaun sighed and pinched the donkey's behind him. Ee-aw. Sweet Gertrude cried, rearing up and bolting. Clinging to the side, Shaun waved his kiss me quick hat at the crowd. This was more like it. Sweet Gertrude. Darting away from Gertrude's galloping hooves, shrieking sunbathers were covered by clouds of sand. Bitzer held on for dear life as she shot across the sand like a comet. Shaun bleated urgently. Bitzer followed Shaun's pointed hoof. Strolling along the shore was a figure wearing outrageous sunglasses. She had curlers in her hair. Timmy's mum. And there were Timmy and the twins. They had made a scale model of the Eiffel Tower out of sand. Bitzer barked loudly. Timmy's mom looked up, blinking. She pulled the sunglasses down on her nose and peered over the top of them. No, she thought to herself, it couldn't be. Could it? Timmy's mom's eyes widened as she watched a donkey carrying Bitzer and Shaun on his back thundering toward her. She grabbed Timmy in panic. With the twins at her heels, she began running up the beach. Ears streaming out behind him and woofing in terror. Okay, let's try that again. Ears streaming out behind him and woofing in terror, Bitzer clung to Sweet Gertrude's mane as she smashed through the twins' Eiffel Tower. This was not the best way to hurt sheep. Okay, read chapter 5. We're gonna save that for next time. There's 8 chapters altogether. So a couple more videos for you guys. And then there's a word search. And shows you how to draw Timmy the sheep. And how to juggle. Alrighty, my sleepy samurais. I'm really glad we got to spend this time together, and I hope this video helped you in some way. Either reduce stress, anxiety, or maybe you're even asleep. If you're asleep, I want you to know that I appreciate you. And if you're awake and you made it to this point in the video, you are amazing. Well guys, like I said, I'm super glad we got to spend this time together, and I hope to see you again really, really soon. Thanks. Bye.